Alright, now we'll talk about the circular motion of a vehicle. That means a vehicle taking a turn along a circular track, a circular horizontal track. Okay, now look here. So our road will be like this. So the road is coming straight like this. This road is like this straight, and then from here it is taking a turn. It is curved in this area, and then again it is straight. Okay, but as you can see over here, it is taking a turn. So over here, when the vehicle will move along this path, basically it will perform a circular motion for that period of time. Okay, so I have this small vehicle with me. So this vehicle is traveling on this road like this. So as this vehicle will move, it is initially moving in a straight direction, and then it is taking a turn, and then again moving in the straight direction. Okay, so there is a circular track over here. Okay, circular track over here. Okay, now as I have shown you over here, this is the top view of the vehicle. That means this is the bird's eye view. If somebody is looking at the vehicle from top, it will see this vehicle like this and the circular part of the road like this. Okay, yeah. Now if I look it from the side view, okay, yeah, this view, you will see what the two wheels of the vehicle. So this is the side view. These are the two wheels of the vehicle, and the front two wheels will be in front of them. Okay, now this circular track will have certain radius. So I have shown this the center of the circular track. So it will have certain radius. The radius will be measured from this center to this point below the center of mass of that vehicle. The radius will be r. Fine. Okay, now we know that for any body performing a circular motion, there must be some force acting on the body called a centripetal force acting towards the center along the radius. Okay, yeah. Now in this case, who will provide the centripetal force for the vehicle when it is taking a turn? The static friction between the tires of the vehicle and the road surface will provide the centripetal force. Okay, yeah. Now you will say that actually it is the driver of the vehicle that steers the wheel, right? Steers the steering wheel, and hence the vehicle takes a turn. But merely steering the steering wheel is not enough. Why? Because just imagine that there is some oil spill over here. There is some oil spill over here on this part of the road. Now, as the as the vehicle is moving, and even if the wheels of the vehicle are turned because the driver has steered the steering wheel, still, as the oil is spilled over here, the vehicle will still in the straight direction. Are you reading this? So merely steering the steering wheel does not help in taking the turn. So, and hence we require frictional force, and that frictional force will provide the centripetal force. Okay, now this will be a static force of friction. Now this force will act towards the center, as I have shown. Fs will denote static force of friction. Fine. Okay, now let's talk about the forces acting on the vehicle. Mg will act on the vehicle in the downward direction starting from its center of mass. The normal reaction by the road on the vehicle will be in the upward direction. As we have mentioned, the frictional force will be towards the center of that circular track. Get this? Okay. Now the normal reaction or the weight of the vehicle mg will be balanced by the normal reaction. So I have said n is equal to mg. Who provides the centripetal force? Obviously the unbalanced force Fs towards the center provides the centripetal force. Its formula is mv square upon r, where v is the speed with which the vehicle is traveling. So Fs is mv square by r. Clear? Alright. Now look at this equation. Over here, now the vehicle can have different speeds, right? A vehicle can go with a smaller speed, another vehicle can go with a larger speed. So over here, if the velocity of the vehicle is greater, that means Fs should also be much greater. I mean, Fs should be also greater. If if velocity increases, Fs should also increase, right? Okay, but we know that there is a limit to which Fs can increase. There is a limit to which static force of friction can increase. That we have studied it in 11th standard. That limit is called as limit of static friction. So what is the highest limit? It is called as Fs max, limit of static friction, right? And that is given by mu s into n, where mu s is what? Is the coefficient of static friction. Mu s is the coefficient of static friction. Okay, yeah. So Fs max is equal to mu s into n. Now look here. There is a limit to which Fx can increase, and hence there will be a limit to which V can increase. So Fs max corresponds to V max. It is clear from this equation. If there is a limit to which Fs can increase, there is a limit to which V can increase. For this equation to work, right? So we are saying that, let us say Fs max corresponds to maximum velocity V max, but Fx max is nothing but mu s into n. So I am writing Fs max as m V max square upon r, because Fs max will correspond to V max, and hence this equation. Now Fs max was nothing but mu s into n, and hence mu s into n is equal to m V max square upon r. Again, n is nothing but equal to mg. So I have, instead of n, I am writing mg. So mu s mg is equal to m V max square upon r. So mm will get cancelled. So the maximum velocity with which we can travel along the circular track is nothing but square root of mu s rg. Maximum velocity is nothing but square root of mu s rg, where mu s is the coefficient of static friction between the tire and the road surface. Are we getting this? Now, this velocity does not depend on mass of the vehicle, because as you can see in the formula, there is no m. So this velocity does not depend on the mass of the vehicle. Okay, this depends on these factors. Are we getting this? Okay, so you mentioned the heading vehicle along a horizontal circular track. You can draw this diagram and then write down. Consider a vehicle of mass m moving along a circular track of radius r with speed v. With speed v. Okay. The weight of the vehicle will be balanced by the normal reaction by the road on the vehicle. The force of static friction between the tire of the vehicles and the road surface will act as centripetal force. And after that, you can mention these things. Okay? Yeah. Fine. Alright. Now, what will happen if we exceed this velocity? Now, suppose if you put these values over here and the answer comes out to be, let us say, 100 kilometers per hour. Okay, so the maximum velocity is 100 kilometers per hour. We can travel with a velocity even lesser than that, but the maximum velocity with which the vehicle can take a turn is 100 kilometers per hour. But what if the vehicle is moving with 110 kilometers per hour? Then the vehicle will skid away, because then the frictional force won't be enough to provide the centripetal force. It is. So if I go beyond this Vmax, the vehicle will skid. It won't move along that circular track. Fine? Alright. Okay. Now you must have heard about this term, Maut ka Kuaa. Okay, or you must have visited a circus wherein you see a cage, and in that cage, the stuntman moves along with his vehicle along that cage from the inner part of the cage. The cage may be a cylindrical in shape or it may be spherical in shape. Okay, now we are going to study the physics behind that. Fine. Now I have shown this cylindrical cage, and the stuntman along with his vehicle is performing circular motion inside that cage. Okay, such that his vehicle's tires are in contact with that cage. Fine. Okay. Now for simplicity, we are considering it to be a particle. M. M is the mass of the vehicle as well as the rider. Okay, it is the combination of mass of the vehicle and the rider. Okay. Now this particle M is performing circular motion in this direction. Fine. Okay. Now again, there will be a normal reaction by the wall on the rider. Okay, as I have shown. Now this normal reaction will act as the centrifugal force for the circular motion. The mg force will act in the downward direction. Now why the rider does not slip down? Because there will be a friction force that is acting in the upward direction. Getting this? Okay. This force will be static force of friction. See, the driver tends to go down. It's not going down because it is being opposed by the friction force, but it tends to go down, and hence the direction of friction force is in the opposite direction. As we have also seen in the previous example, if there was no frictional force between the tires of the vehicle and the road surface, the vehicle would skid, right? Because I had given you the example of oil being spilled on the road. So once oil was spilled on the road, the vehicle would go in straight line. It would skid in straight line. Okay, it is the frictional force. Now, if there is no oil, there will be a frictional force. Now, it is the frictional force that will prevent it from skidding. So the skidding, so it will tend to skid in this direction, and hence the frictional force will act in this opposite direction. Getting this? For example, if I give you, if this is my mobile phone in which I am recording everything. Okay, the audio recorder. Okay. Now, as you can see, if I keep my mobile like this, it tends to go down, but still it is not going down. Why? Because now the frictional force is opposing that motion of going down. If there was no frictional force over here, it would have gone down. But since it tends to go down, but still it is not going down, that means there must be a frictional force opposing it in the opposite direction. In the same way, the particle M tends to slip down, but it is the static force of friction that will prevent it from skidding down, and hence the downward force mg will be balanced by the static force of friction Fs in the upward direction. Alright, so I have written mg is equal to Fs, and who provides the centrifugal force? The normal reaction, and hence n will be equal to mv square by r. Okay, the normal reaction. Who gives the normal reaction? The wall on the particle. Okay, so n is equal to mv square by r. Now again, Fs. We know that Fs can have a maximum value of mu s into n, limiting force of static friction. Or we can say that Fs is always lesser than or equal to mu s into n. It can be mu s into n, maximum value, or lesser than mu s into n, because mu s into n is the maximum value. Okay, so Fs is less than or equal to mu s into n. Right? Now Fs was nothing but mg, so instead of Fs I have written mg, and instead of n I have written mv square by r. Okay, so mg is less than or equal to mu s mv square by r. mm will get cancelled. I have g less than or equal to mu s v square upon r. Now what is again mu s? Mu s is the coefficient of static friction between the tires of the vehicle and the surface of that wall. Alright, so okay, so I have just put this on the left hand side. So as you can see, v square will be what? G into r upon mu s. V square will be greater than or equal to square root of rg upon mu s. And hence taking square root on both sides, v will be greater than or equal to square root of rg upon mu s. So we can have a value equal to this value or greater than this value. So the minimum value will be what? Equal to this value. So v minimum will be equal to square root of rg upon mu s. Getting this? So this is the minimum velocity with which the rider or the stuntman must keep in order that he will not slip down. Anything lesser than this velocity will make the rider along with his vehicle fall down. Okay, so this is the minimum velocity with which he should ride. Alright, now I have with me a string and a stone is attached at the end of the string. Fine? Okay. Now this can be called as the bob, and this is nothing but a simple pendulum. If I disturb this from its equilibrium position, it will keep on oscillating like this, in this manner. Getting this? So this is nothing but a simple pendulum. Okay. Now today we are going to study about conical pendulum. Now look here carefully. Now I am giving the bob such a motion that it will perform a circular motion in this plane, in a horizontal plane. The plane will be parallel to the floor. Okay. Now watch carefully. I am giving it a motion in this manner. So I am just giving a motion to it like this. So as you can see, it is performing, the stone, or we can say the bob, is performing a circular motion, while the string will trace the surface of a cone. Now observe carefully. If I increase the velocity of the stone, the radius of that circular motion will also increase. If I increase the velocity, the radius of the circular motion will also increase. Okay, fine. Yeah. So this is nothing but a conical pendulum. So as I have mentioned here, this is a conical pendulum and I have drawn the diagram of it. So this was the string. This was the bob of mass m. The length of the string should be measured from the rigid support to the center of mass of the bob. Okay? So that will be the length of the string. And this bob will perform a circular motion as we have seen in the horizontal plane. The radius of that circular motion is r. The center of that circular motion is O. Okay? Okay. So you draw this diagram and write down the heading conical pendulum. Fine. Now let us see the forces acting on the bob. Now we know that for any circular motion, there must be a force acting on that particle performing circular motion towards the center of the circular motion, called as centripetal force. So even over here, as the bob is performing circular motion, there must be some force which is providing which is working as the centripetal force, because without that centripetal force, the circular motion is not possible. Okay. Now the string will be under tension. So this is the tension of the string. I have mentioned it with T. I will resolve this force, the tension in the string, into two components: vertical component and horizontal component. Now this is the angle theta. The angle theta will be called as the semi-vertical angle of the cone, okay? Or the angle made by the string with the vertical. Now as you can see, if this is theta, this will be also theta, because those are alternate angles. Okay? Now as we were talking, I am resolving this force or this tension into two components. One is a vertical component and another is horizontal component. Now we know that the component next to theta is always cos theta component. So this component will be t cos theta and the remaining component will be t sin theta. Okay. Now as we have resolved this t in t cos theta and t sin theta, we have to forget about t. Now we have to only think about t cos theta and t sin theta. Okay. Resolution of the force means what? Sum of the force. Actually this is the direction of the force, but some part of the force is acting in this direction, some part of this force is acting in this direction. This part is nothing but t cos theta and this part is nothing but t sin theta. Okay, yeah. Now as you can see, the force acting on M, the bob, the gravitational force acting on M will be mg in the downward direction. Now T cos theta will balance mg. So as I have written over here, T cos theta is equal to mg. T cos theta is balancing mg. The unbalanced force, that is T sin theta, will provide the centripetal force. Right? Okay, now what is the formula for centripetal force? mv square by r. So this T sin theta is nothing but mv square by r, or also we know that centripetal force is mr omega square, using the relation v is equal to r omega. So this T sin theta provides the centripetal force. So T sin theta is equal to mr omega square. Right? Okay. Now what we have done? We have taken 2 divided by 1, equation 2 divided by equation 1. So 2 divided by 1. So over here T and T will get cancelled. Sin theta upon cos theta will give me tan theta. Again, on right hand side I have mr omega square divided by mg. So m and m will get cancelled. So we are left with r omega square upon g. Now from the geometry, what is tan theta? Tan theta will be opposite upon adjacent, where opposite is the radius and adjacent is the height of that conical surface. Right? Okay. So tan theta, I can replace tan theta by r by h, opposite upon adjacent. So again on right hand side I had r omega square upon g. Here r will get cancelled. I want to find out the relation of omega. So I will take g over here. Taking square root of on both sides, I will get omega is equal to square root of g upon h. Okay? Okay. Now what is h? H can be written as L cos theta. From geometry and simple trigonometry, cos theta is adjacent upon hypotenuse. So from that I get h as L cos theta. Okay? Yeah. So we got the relation of omega as square root of g upon L cos of theta. Right? Okay. Now let us talk about the time period. Time period means what? Time period of the bob. That means how much time it takes to complete one rotation. That is nothing but the time period. Now we know that omega, what is the unit of omega? Radians per second. Now if I take the complete time period, that means the time taken to complete one rotation, the corresponding angle traced will be 2 pi. So radians per second, I can write omega as 2 pi upon time period. Now here I have mentioned time period as t dash. Why? Because I have already used the alphabet T for tension. Generally T is used for time period, but since over here T is already used for tension, hence I am using time period as t dash. Okay, so omega will be 2 pi upon t dash. So from that t dash will be 2 pi upon omega. It is the time period. Okay, yeah. Now omega, we have got the relation over here. Now we'll put this over here. So t dash will become what? 2 pi square root of L cos theta upon g. We have omega in the denominator, right? So hence we'll get t dash is equal to 2 pi square root of L cos theta upon g. Getting this? So this is the time period. Okay. Now what we have to do, you just put the heading conical pendulum. You draw this diagram. Afterwards you write down conical pendulum is a simple pendulum where the bob is given such a motion that it performs a circular motion while the string describes a cone. Okay, after this you can mention these things. Getting this? Okay. Now one interesting thing over here is that, as we had already seen, that as the speed of the bob increases, that means the omega will also increase, right? So as the speed of the bob increases, as omega increases, the radius also increases, right? So as the radius increases, the angle theta will also increase. Getting this? Okay. Now, is there any limit to which theta can increase? That means, can that theta become 90 degree? So if the theta becomes 90 degree, that means our diagram will be like this. No? This is the bob, and our string is exactly horizontal. That means we are literally rotating the bob in a horizontal circular motion. I mean, with the string outstretched in this direction. Now the string will not describe a conical surface. The string itself will describe a disc. Right? Okay. Yeah. Now, is this possible? Can this angle be equal to 90 degree? Because as we have seen that if I go on increasing the speed, the angle goes on increasing, or vice versa. If the angle goes on increasing, that means the speed of the bob is also increasing. More the angle, more the speed. That is the case. Okay, but can this angle be equal to 90 degree? Now look here. If I put theta over here as 90 degree, cos of 90 is 0. So anything, but here cos of theta is in the denominator. No? So we will get 0 in the denominator. That will make omega as infinite. That means the angular velocity of the bob will be infinite if this angle is 90 degree. That means the velocity of the bob will be infinite if this angle is 90 degree. Now that is not possible, right? So look, once again look at this equation as well. Tension in the string will be what? Mg upon cos of theta. Again, if theta is 90 degree, cos of 90 is 0, so it will be T will be Mg upon 0. So again T, that is tension in the string, will also be equal to infinite. Again, that is not possible. Getting this? So this condition is not possible. So we can never have this angle theta equal to 90 degree. This angle theta will be always lesser than 90 degree. Now we have understood by mathematics why this 90 degree angle is not possible. But let us see it from this different perspective. Now if the angle becomes 90 degree, the mg force will still act in this direction. The tension in the string will be like this. Now as you can see that there is no, the tension in the string may provide the centrifugal force, will provide the centrifugal force. There is no doubt in that. But as you can see over here, there is no force to balance this force mg. Getting this? And hence this situation will never come in practice. Because over here, due to some angle other than 90 degree, I can always have a component of T along vertical. That component will balance mg. But over here, the string itself is horizontal, and hence the entire component is in the horizontal, or entire force is only along the horizontal line, the tension in the string. Getting this? And hence we cannot have any component of this tension in the vertical direction, and hence there is no one to balance this force mg, and hence theta will be always less than 90 degree, this angle theta. Okay, so this is all about conical pendulum. Okay, chalo, thank you.